This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Jeff took a sailing on Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas. It was a 7-night Southern Caribbean cruise out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, and he joins us on the line to talk about it. How you doing, my friend?
Good, Doug. How you been?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Excited to talk about this one because this is a unique cruise because normally when you think of it, you're going on a Caribbean cruise, you're leaving out of Miami, Lauderdale, Tampa, or whatnot, but you actually went down to San Juan to start this cruise. So before we get to Rhapsody, we'll take a step back. Give us some pre-cruise thoughts. What made you want to take this 7-nighter on Rhapsody, but also have to fly down to San Juan, Puerto Rico from Ohio to do so?
So my wife and I were big cruisers. We've been on 20 to 30 of them, just us, and I've been on probably about 50. So we're avid cruisers, and we obviously love it very much. And we went to Puerto Rico last July for my wife's birthday. Loved it. We said we want to take one out of here. It's only a few nights beforehand, and the price was right. A southern out of Puerto Rico during hurricane season on an old ship. You can't beat it.
Yeah, no, certainly. So you mentioned you went in a couple of days beforehand. Like, what'd you experience before you started sailing?
So we went in on a Friday. Yeah, so the cruise left out on Sunday. We flew in Friday, got there around noon, stayed in Old San Juan, went to the Bacardi factory, did that whole tour, got knocked over by the giant waves they don't tell tourists about on that northern coast of Puerto Rico, and hung out at the beach, got some good food, got some seafood, and just hung out for my wife and I for my 40th.
And you make your way on board the ship, or rather to the cruise pier, I should say. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Royal Caribbean, they don't embark right there in Old San Juan. It's like a different pier, right? The Pan American, is that what it is?
So there's two. There's like one that's like south, and we actually screwed this up. It's kind of funny. First off, Ubers in Puerto Rico, greatest thing ever. They're like $4 to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So we took it to the wrong one. I think it was the one that you just said, Pan American, was the incorrect one.
Okay.
They were actually going out of the other one. I don't know why. I have been out of the Pan American, but they were using the same one that Carnival used to go out of. Okay. Which is on the north side. Mm-hmm. Because we pulled up to Pan American. It was nobody there. I'm like, I don't think we're in the right spot. And he took us to the other one, which is a breeze. I mean, it's like 100 yards from where you go through the little under gate bridge to when you're on board. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Nice. So how long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
4 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, it was nuts. It was too quick to where we were like, wait, like we got to our boarding time. I think we had 10:30 time. We got there at 10 o'clock and we're like, man, we are so early. We are on ship drinking hand by 10:10.
Wow. That's awesome.
It is awesome.
With you being an avid cruiser, have you sailed Rhapsody before?
I have not. We've been on a bunch of the smaller Royal Caribbean stuff. We've been on a ton of Carnival. Mm-hmm. My wife and I I don't want to say we're Carnival people, but man, we split it. We have two kids. We got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. So we usually do the whole typical bring them on the Royal Caribbean ones.
Yeah.
And then my wife and I would go on Carnival because, we like to let loose.
Yeah.
It's our vacation, so we like to have fun. It was fun. Being the port intensive, we kind of left it just us two.
You make your way on board the ship. What were your first impressions of Rhapsody of the Seas?
It's tired. It's old school cruising. I remember growing up as a kid going on those type ships, and it's nice, but once you go on those Carnival celebrations, the Icon, the Oasis stuff, the Icon class, these ships, it's not the same. So but I love it because it's that old school cruising. It's not the whole crazy hype and wow factor. Ship very clean and well maintained. The crew is great, but the ship is tired. You can tell it's got some miles on her. Mm-hmm. But we made the best of it, and it's the perfect ship for the itinerary. If they put that ship in Miami, that's obviously why they don't, anywhere else besides that port intensive itinerary, you'd get a lot of complaints.
This ship was, I remember just before the shutdown, it went under a refurb, like maybe 2018, 2019, something like that. But I remember at the restart, we were docked next to it, And I'm like, is that ship even still in service? Because it was filled with rust and everything. And I'm like,
the rust.
Yeah. It's like, wow. But it was.
I mean, they got it cleaned up. I mean, how many layers of white paint, can you put on before it starts chipping? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You go by all the windows, you see the corners, and it's like, it's 25 years of slapping paint on on rust. But like I said, they make the best fit. Like I said, it's perfect for that port intense, itinerary, which was awesome. So they make the best of it. I love the fact that Royal, I know they're bringing back the whole like new small ship concept I've heard.
Yep.
And that's going to be so perfect. I mean, to kind of retire these old ships, but have like a newer, smaller ship, because people, believe it or not, still love small ship sailings. I do. My wife does. A bunch of people do. If you have a brand new ship in that market, it's going to be perfect. Because I like the idea that they're going to be coming out with that.
Yeah, there needs to be a balance, but I guess, the corporate and the bean counters look at it like the small ships don't make the money, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I know. I get it.
So let's talk about your stateroom on this 7-night cruise. What kind of stateroom did you book, and how did an almost 30-year-old stateroom do you for this voyage?
We did a ocean view. We were usually strictly balcony people, but I was like, you know what? It's my 40th. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to get a ocean view just because of the ports. We only had one day at sea. It's like, we're never in our room anyways. And that even with this, with being so many ports, we're definitely never going to be in our room. So we just did the typical old school Royal where the bed's pushed up against that back circle window, and you got about 6 inches on each side, and the typical curtain bathroom that sticks to you in the shower.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was fine. I mean, it was clean. You can tell it went under a refurb, not crazy recently, but it was enough. Like I said, it's that ship has got its niche, and it's found it being in that port intense itinerary. But it was great. It was fun.
Yeah, they seem to use those older ships. I remember before COVID to shut everything down, Carnival was sailing out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, with a almost 30-year-old ship doing that run.
Yeah, we went on the Glory way back when out of San Juan too, and I don't know why they pulled out. Obviously, like you said, the bean counters are doing their things, but
yeah, I think the demand softened, I believe. Let's talk about the food on board. We'll start at the Windjammer Marketplace, where you can get the buffet. How was that laid out, and how was the food? I mean, older ship, is the food quality still there?
It's still there, just the choices aren't as heavy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't have the room. You go on an Icon, you go on the Oasis class, and you have a 4 times the size of a restaurant, so they have more room to put stuff. But being out of San Juan, it's a very Spanish-influenced cuisine, which is great. We love that. It's different, but the quality was fine. I mean, no complaints. Typical, Royal food. We didn't have any grapes about anything. It was always hot. It was always fresh, seemed fresh, and yeah, we liked it. Like, so much smaller. We hadn't been on a small ship of that size in 7 to 8 years. I think the smallest ship we went on, Royal, was Navigator about 2 years ago, and this is significantly smaller. But it's cozy. It's still fun. It's got that, like I said, that old school cruising feeling.
So, since it was smaller, did it feel cramped in there, or was there still a good job with the crowd flow in the buffet area?
It was definitely cramped at the peak times, which what cruise line isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not any different than a typical, like if you go to breakfast at 9:00, guess what? You're going to wait.
Yeah.
They were trying the systems. I don't know if anybody's told you this. When you get fresh eggs or omelets, they give you a pager.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm not kidding you, 50 pagers going beep, 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 constantly during your entire breakfast. And it's nonstop. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to get people not wait in line and get out of the way. But you have these pagers up going off if you want fresh eggs or omelets or something like that. And it was obnoxious. But you're on a cruise. How much can you complain?
Yeah.
You could slap a 4-day-old burger in front of me, and if I'm on a cruise, I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hear you. As far as the main dining room, what time dining did you have, and how was the service in there throughout the week?
We did the early dining. It was great. Servers are typical, a typical Royal Caribbean. Awesome. We don't deserve to be treated as well as they treat us. I'll tell you that, for how hard they work. But it was awesome. We went there, I want to say 5 of the 7 nights, just because some of the ports were pretty late port days. But we did main dining room 5 of the 7 nights, and it was awesome. Obviously, I had to hit lobster night hard, but
How many lobsters did you do?
They limit one, and it used to be like $5 a tail if you wanted extra. Mm-hmm. I think they charge full price now for if you want to get a second tail. I know. I was like, man, but no, we only got one tail each, but the rest of the week, it was up to par with every other Royal Caribbean ship I've been on.
Now, this ship only has a couple of specialty restaurants, as most of their older ones do. Chops, Azumi, and the Italian place is Giovanni's. Did you do any of those?
No, we didn't. We were going to do Chops, but we got back too late, and you know what? We did Chops on Odyssey about 3 months ago. It was good, and it's like, you know what? We're okay. We're still full from lunch, eating on the island, so we're like, yeah, let's skip it. But
how about any grab-and-go food, like from the Park Cafe?
Park Cafe food was awesome. I mean, it's all in the back. Mm-hmm. It's like a way back, like past the solarium. The pizza's right there. They had like the mixed salads. They had the fruit platters. They had all that stuff all in one spot. That got super crowded. I mean, obviously pizza on a cruise is like crack to people. So they flock to it. It was great. I mean, but the food was awesome. That was the freshest food you probably get on board. Obviously the pizza, they make it to order. Long lines, especially during when people just get back on the ship from the islands, or that like break between, lunch and dinner spot. Mm-hmm. But it was good. Outside
of the Windjammer, like by the pool, is there a grill or anything out there? You can get a hot dog or a hamburger?
Nothing. It's it's the pool, the bar. You better love it or hate it.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, yep. Fair enough. How was the entertainment on this 7-night cruise for you?
We didn't do anything. I mean, we were so, like I said, port intense that we stayed. We are big beach people. We're big divers. So we dove 4 of the 5 islands. Nice. So we would be off the ship at, I think they're all like 8 to 5, mm-hmm. but we'd pull in between 6:30 and 7, pretty much every one. They start letting off at 7:30 and we'd be off at 7:31, so we get back and then we back on at, if last call was 4:30, we'd be back on at 4:25. So, and then we go to dinner, and then after that, we kind of picked our bar that we went to every night, made friends with the bartenders, and that was kind of our spot that we went to every night. We did the piano bar a couple nights. It was okay. We had just gotten back off Odyssey when was that? February of last year, and we had, I don't know, there's a guy, he's popular on Instagram. He has his own like channel, like Brian James. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But he's on Royal, and he was on that ship, and he was just phenomenal. So we kind of comparing him to him, which was no comparison. We went to the piano, like I said, twice. It was good. We compared it to our time on Odyssey, but we're like, this is nothing like that. So we kind of just went back to our little, our dive bar in the middle of the ship.
Could y'all be found at the casino at all?
We did twice, just because the Indians were in the American League Championship. So we went to the casino for 3 of the nights, the casino bar. I didn't do much gambling, played a couple hands of blackjack, but nothing crazy. It was very smoky.
Yeah.
But I'm like I said, it's weird. I don't smoke, but like I'm old school cruiser. I don't know. I kind of like it. It's weird.
Yeah.
I know people don't like smoke, but I like that. Some smells can like bring you back.
Yeah.
That's like one of them. I don't know. It's weird. It's like I smelled that like, man, I'm on a cruise. I'm on an old school cruise, so I can smell smoke in the casino.
It's like that going to Vegas too. Yeah. Like it's my friends are like, I want to walk through the casino. I'm like, I might not be gambling, but I still want to walk through the casino. It doesn't bother me at all. It's like just part of the atmosphere, I guess.
Hit that first hit of that air conditioning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too, especially in the summertime. So how were the sea days? Well, I should say, how was the sea day on this 7-night cruise as far as crowds and congestion?
It was crowded, not too crazy. There's only really one main pool and then the solarium. So the pool definitely got crowded, between 10 and 3. They did the typical belly flop contest, hairy chest contest, all that stuff. But we got a seat. We usually go to the pool. Like I said, we go there at 9:30 on the pool day. We got there pretty early, and we stayed there for 6 hours, just hanging out, people watching. Nothing better than people watching on a cruise.
Yeah. You got that right. So the ports of call, I can't read my writing here. It looks like St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. Lucia, Barbados, and I think I'm missing one. So let's start at the first one. What was your first port of call, and what was the highlight there?
St. Croix was first. My wife and I, we rented a car, and then we went to, I used to live in St. Thomas, and I visited St. Croix quite a bit, so I kind of used to the driving standards of St. Croix and the roads and how awful they are. So we got a car at like 7:30, and we went to a dive shop up in Cane Bay. Excuse me. Did 2 dives, and then drove around the island for a while. Went to Christiansted, to the pier there, and got the best fish sandwich we've ever had in our life. There's fresh wahoo that was caught like an hour ago.
Nice.
And got back on board around 4:45. Last call was 5. So we got back on at 4:45. It was great.
Nice. Then St. Thomas was next?
Yep, St. Thomas. We did we didn't get a car. I wish we would have. I don't remember St. Thomas, like the rides being that expensive, but I mean, it's $18 each way, pretty much each ride. So we got off at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, went to Megan's Bay, stayed there for about 3 hours, then got a tram to Koki. Went to Koki Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Went there. We did a dive, 1-tank dive, right off the beach there. Came back on, bought a bucket of beers, hang out on the beach for 2 hours, and then got a tram back.
Nice. Now, since you used to live there, did you go to like any of your old stomping grounds or see anybody you may have recognized?
No, we were going to, but we've been back there so many times that my wife's seen all that stuff, and she's like, "Okay, cool, I got that
Right.
T-shirt. Now let's move on."
Sure.
But, it's always fun going back. It's the beaches are obviously just so incredible, and it's always fun going back.
Yeah, absolutely. Your next port of call, was it St. Lucia?
It was St. Kitts.
Okay.
So went St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Barbados.
Okay. What'd you do in St. Kitts?
St. Kitts, we did an excursion through the cruise. It was the speedboat snorkel thing. By speedboat, it was a 12-foot dinghy with a motor on the back, but it was great. It was fun. The tour guides were awesome, as they usually are. Took us to a couple snorkel spots, and then when we got back, we're like, "Hey, where should we go? Just hang out at the beach." And he actually took us on a boat to like this little restaurant there, right on the beach, and we hung out there for 5 hours. It was awesome.
And then St. Lucia.
St. Lucia, same thing. We did a dive. We a 2-tank dive on the north end. Solid drive. It was probably about an hour drive from the port. Did that. Then we got a ride back, and we kind of stopped at some old side, like they're famous for like their cheese bread there.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a loaf of that, got a couple pastries, drove back, went around town, did the typical tourist, got some T-shirts, got some magnets for the kids, and then walked back to the pier. We were busy all day. I mean, all these ports just, like I said, that's why we booked it. It was very inexpensive being during hurricane season. So it's nerve wracking because like, well, are we going to go? Are we not going to go? Mm-hmm. But it ended up being perfect.
The last port of call was Barbados. How was your day there?
Barbados was great. That place is amazing. I mean, it's, of all the islands, just the cleanliness, the infrastructure, it's very well done. We did an excursion through the main companies there, like a snorkel with turtles, a Tiami, I want to say it's called.
Okay.
It's one of the big operators down there. A snorkel with turtles thing that was only about 4 hours or 3 hours on a catamaran. Got the catamaran ride back, took a cab to the main beach up there, and hung out for 4 or 5 hours just at the beach, had some lunch, bucket of beers, and came back.
I'm curious because you were down there in October, and that is really just before all the ships start leaving Europe to head to the Caribbean. Correct. For the wintertime. So how was it as far as like the port crowds and congestion at all the ports you went to?
None. We were the only ship in every single port every single day.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing.
It was amazing. So we weren't fighting over cabs. They weren't fighting over us. They kind of fighting over us, but I mean, it was so easy to negotiate stuff. It wasn't crowded, especially at St. Thomas. St. Thomas can get crazy. Mm-hmm. St. Croix and Barbados. I want to say the guy said our ship was like one of the last of the season. Like you said, he's like, you guys are like it for like months. So. It was nice. It was great.
Do many people go over to St. John when they go to St. Thomas still? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you've been there. It's not this world. I mean, that place I love how it's so untouched and it's a, national park still, so not allowing it to stay that way. I mean, it's definitely getting touristy. Yeah. I mean, there's, when I lived in St. Thomas, it was a cool place to go, but it wasn't the place to go, if you know what I mean. Now it's like, okay, you go to St. Thomas, St. John is the place to go. So I was a pilot when I was down there when I lived in St. Thomas. So I flew all around the islands, and any time I had time off, I would hop over there. Just hop on one of those ferries, and it was great.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you make your way back to San Juan, Puerto Rico. How was the debark?
It was great. We had an early flight. Not early, but 10:30. So we opted to do the self carry off, which was a breeze. I mean, we got in so early because everything's so close. It's so funny that like when you go between these islands, you do more zigzags than you do straight lines. Because they have to burn time. Burn time out at sea, because if not, you get there at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
So we got into Puerto Rico so early. I want to say we started pulling at 5:30. So we got off as soon as they played that bell. We were right out our door, and we got off 10-15 minutes later.
It reminds me of like when I was on Navigator a couple of years ago, and we left LA, and our first stop was Catalina Island, which is like not even 20 miles off the coast of California. So we're just kind of very creeping and then circling and creeping. Like, you know, it's just funny how they kill time like that. But
when we did St. Croix to St. Thomas, we went backwards for a while.
Oh, wow. Okay. There you go.
We sailed south, and then they turned around and went back north. There you go.
Nice. Do you have any first-time tips for someone who may be wanting to sail either Rhapsody of the Seas or a cruise out of San Juan, Puerto Rico?
For first time, I don't want to say I don't suggest it, but, people are so naive when it comes to cruising, and me being in the aviation industry, people are just naive about like this whole industry in general. Don't get your impression based off of that, like that ship, and vice versa. I don't think someone should go on Icon their very first cruise.
Yeah.
I think you're setting yourself up for failure both ways. I think, like I said earlier, that ship for that itinerary, amazing. Like and the fact that they're coming out with newer, smaller ships, so they say, is I think a awesome idea, because I like that smaller vibe. I like going to my same bartender every night. At the first day of the trip, I slipped my $100 bill and said, "Hey, I'll be back every night for the next week." And then they get to know you, they know your drinks, and you can get that on the bigger ships, but not as much, but for first time, I don't know if I would suggest it. I mean, you're going to have a blast. It's a cruise, Doug. I mean, you can't not have fun on a cruise. So if you want to make that your first time, awesome, explore the ports, but venture out, and look at the other ships. Cause like I said, the ship is very tired.
Yeah.
Great, but tired.
There is something about those smaller ships, but even before the shutdown, I would jump on Majesty of the Seas in a second. Just a small ship. You had the Viking Crown Lounge up there, the disc up there. It was just so awesome. And
when they have the same venue as 5 different things,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, the biggest highlight of this cruise for y'all?
The ports. Obviously, the diving at the ports and the weather. The weather was so phenomenal. We had Florida just gotten hit with Helene, and then the second one was coming when we were gone. We just left, but the weather was just phenomenal. I mean, we did not have one drop of rain the entire time. It was typical Caribbean hot, but who's counting temperature when you're in the Caribbean, on the beach? Sure. It was perfect.
Well, in closing here, Jeff, your final thoughts of Rhapsody of the Seas.
It was fun. It was great. Old school cruising. Tired, but well maintained, and just perfect for that itinerary. And it was fun. We definitely do it again.
I actually want to ask you one more question here. For what you paid, was the value there?
The value was so incredible that I'd be embarrassed to even say what we paid.
Okay. Fair enough.
It was amazing. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw like how much it was. I would have booked it 4 years in a row if they had this sailing 4 years out in advance.
So we've been talking with Jeff about his 4-night cruise out of San Juan, Puerto Rico to the Caribbean. Jeff, thank you so much for your review, my friend. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Doug. I appreciate you. Thanks for everything you do.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,